Well, it's always ambitious to plan an event to start at 8 a.m. And I think we haven't quite met our ambitions. It's now 8:15. But welcome, good morning, and welcome to Pioneer Institute's Forum on Civil Rights, Charter Schools, and Teacher Unions. As Jim mentioned, my name is Tom Birmingham. I am the Senior Education Fellow at the Pioneer Institute. Truth be told, I just assumed this position a week ago, and this is my first public appearance with Pioneer. So in these circumstances, if you'd allow me to exercise a point of personal privilege and say a couple of words, very short words, about how I came to join Pioneer Institute. Over the last decade, I've done between half a dozen and a dozen forums just like this on education with Pioneer. I've delivered the keynote addresses, I've served on panels, I've moderated panels. Today, not to worry, I'm just warming up the act. I'm just doing the introductory remarks. But as a result of all those events that I participated in, I came to recognize and appreciate the common ground I had with Pioneer Institute on so many education issues. Candidly, on other policy issues, we don't have that common ground. We've had to agree to disagree. These are issues of healthy and honest and principled differences. And what has always impressed me in my dealings with Pioneer is the organization's respect for and commitment to the free exchange of different views, ideas, and opinions. And at every forum I have attended with Pioneer on education, there has always been a spirited free exchange of ideas with competing and even conflicting points of view put forward. And I suspect that today will not be an exception to that rule as we discuss civil rights, charter schools, and teacher unions. This morning we are indeed fortunate to have an impressive and balanced group of presenters. We have school leaders, historians, charter school founders, teacher union presidents. I am confident that we will witness a lively exchange of ideas. And this is not only stimulating, but it is necessary to intelligent policymaking, the open debate on the merits of different policy perspectives. Let me do a little quick housekeeping and thank our event co-sponsors, who are SABUS, Harvard's Kennedy School Program on Education Policy and Governance, the Black Alliance for Educational Options, the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools, the Apple Tree Institute, the Massachusetts Charter Public School Association, and Harvard Law School's Charles Hamilton Houston Institute for Race and Justice. Thank you all, our co-sponsors. I'd also be remiss if I didn't publicly acknowledge the debt of gratitude we all have to Jamie Gass, who has organized this event, and he does a stellar job on this event and always does. And Jamie, thank you very much. I come to education policy issues through my work as a public official. I was elected to the State Senate in 1990 and appointed Senate Chair of the Education Committee in 1991. In that capacity, I co-authored the Education Reform Act of 1993, a law that is generally credited with catapulting Massachusetts public schools to the top echelon in American public education. Ed reform gives us a lot to be proud about. But what isn't always remembered is that charter schools were established in the Education Reform Act of 1993. If memory serves, in the Senate version of Ed Reform, we established charter schools with no cap, unlimited number of charter schools. The House did not allow charter schools at all. So that was a rather wide delta to have to negotiate, no charters versus unlimited charters. But we ultimately came to a Solomonic compromise, and we agreed to initiate the charter school program with 25 schools. There was nothing intrinsically significant about that number. It was just a figure that we could both sides could live with. And I would file this under the category of better to be lucky than smart, because as a function of the small number of charter schools that we allowed, 25, we had to be highly selective in issuing grants to charter schools, and we couldn't afford to be shy about revoking charter grants when circumstances required. And I think that contributed to the high caliber of charter schools that we have in Massachusetts. We have some of the best charter schools in the country, and that was, I think, partly a result of our very modest beginnings. So I was proud to be there at the creation of charter schools, and I was proud to be a champion of charter schools in the legislature. But before I came to the legislature, I spent over a decade as a union side labor lawyer, and I worked primarily in the private sector, primarily with the building trades, although I do remember handling one arbitration case for the Brockton Teachers Union. And once elected, I continued to be supportive of and supported by organized labor. When I ran for governor over a decade ago, I was proud to be endorsed by both statewide teachers unions, despite our disagreement over the issue of charter schools. So I bring a perhaps unusual perspective to today's topic, in that I am both a champion of charter schools and at the same time a strong union supporter. Now, this is the type of quandary that legislators have to deal with all the time, trying to bridge the gap between groups that seem to have irreconcilable differences. James Madison described the legislator's dilemma in Federalist Number 10 in this way: the regulation of these various and interfering interests forms the principal task of modern legislation and involves the spirit of party and faction in the necessary and ordinary operations of government. So today, let's begin that conversation with parties holding competing and perhaps even conflicting views and visions of civil rights, charter schools, and teachers' unions, in the hopes that we may achieve, if not synthesis, at least a mutual understanding of our respective positions. And with that, let me introduce our first keynote speaker, Dr. Sapphira Shuttlesworth. Dr. Shuttlesworth is the director of the Mid-Michigan Leadership Academy, a SABUS network school located in Lansing, Michigan. Dr. Shuttleworth and her siblings integrated the Pope Elementary School in Jackson, Tennessee. She earned a bachelor's degree in elementary education from Union University and a master's degree from the University of Cincinnati. She received an honorary doctorate degree from the Global Evangelical Christian College and Seminary in Montgomery, Alabama. Dr. Shuttlesworth is a former teacher and is the widow of the late, great Birmingham, Alabama civil rights leader, the Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth. Without more, I give you Dr. Sapphira Shuttlesworth.